Hey everybody, as many of you know, this is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And I am someone who has been engaged in suicide research and suicide prevention research for a few years now. And I oftentimes get the question of, well, suicide, like basically, why would you do that work? And I do the work because I am convinced that, in fact, if we knew more about the things that caused or motivated someone to take their own life, then we could prevent it. And there are some things that we already know, and that's a little bit about what I want to share with you today. That what we know about people who oftentimes die by suicide is that they feel like their life doesn't matter, or they feel like whatever it is that they're going through, they can't deal with it. And what ends up happening is they show up in crisis, they have no solutions, and they don't feel like there's anyone that they can turn to and nothing that matters. And so they come up with a plan, or sometimes they don't, and they take their life. And sometimes they attempt to take their life, but it's non-fatal, so they may end up in the hospital, and sometimes they don't. But this is what's most important for each one of us to know, is that just about, or the overwhelming majority of people who die by suicide, there will be folks who would say, I had no idea. Well, I knew they were going through some things, but I didn't know it was that bad. And the thing is, what is that bad is different for everyone. And so what all of us can do, what each and every one of us can do, is to reach out, and especially now in this time of physical distance, to reach out to others, check on them, say, on a scale of 0 to 10, how are you doing today? 0 being awful and 10 being you're over the moon. I don't know anybody who's over the moon right now unless they got something else on board. But check in with people. And if someone says, like, you know what, I'm at a 4 or 5, you don't even really need to know what's going on. You don't. That's where a lot of us get in trouble, because we don't reach out, because we don't want to tell people what's really going on, because we don't want to be judged, and we don't want people to say, like, oh, all you got to do is pray about it or take it to the Lord in prayer. Like, a lot of folks will not reach out for help because they think, well, if I prayed about it and it didn't work, then what's the point? So we got to start being available to people in a way that makes sense for them and not in a way that makes sense for us. We have to check on each other and say, hey, how are you doing? And be willing to be a non-judgmental ear. One of the things that I talk about in my book, The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health, is kind of the ABCs. The A starts with assume that you can be helpful. Someone who's in crisis, if we tell ourselves, I got to keep that person alive, that's a lot of responsibility. But if we assume that just our very presence and our willingness to hear and our willingness to listen makes a difference, then that takes us so much farther over the goal line than you could have possibly imagined. And the B is being present. So rather than think about how to problem solve and fix whatever's going on, just be in the moment. You can say things like, tell me more about what's going on. Tell me, which part of that you're struggling with the most. Like, be right there in the moment. You're not necessarily trying to problem solve. That's not your goal. Your goal is to be there. And the C is cancel your judgment. That's what I was already saying. Like, well, I don't know why it's that bad. Well, when so-and-so went through a certain thing, it didn't bother them that much. Or I don't know why this is troubling you so much. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if someone is struggling, they're having a hard time, they need someone to be present, they need someone to listen, they need someone to care about them, they need someone to tell them about the time that they did something that really mattered in your life. Tell them about the time that they did something that was like really special, or tell them about a time that you shared that just meant so much to them. Cancel your judgment. Be present. Assume that you can be helpful. I hope this is helpful to someone, and you guys take care and be great.